Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coming Home to Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa, and here we'll dive into everything healing, mindset, confidence, manifestation, and how to become your most empowered self, aka coming home to yourself. In today's episode, we are diving into a topic that shapes how so many women live their lives, often without even realizing it. And it is called breaking free from the good girl conditioning, or what it also can be called breaking free from the people-pleasing conditioning. And believe me, when I say that I was the biggest player in that game, all right? I was a really, really bad people pleaser. I was so scared to make anyone feel some type of way about me that I did not care at all how I felt about myself, right? I completely neglected myself. And that is why today's episode is about exactly this: to unlearn these deeply ingrained beliefs that have kept you playing small, prioritizing others over yourself, and sacrificing your authenticity just to be accepted, just to be liked and validated. So, let me just say this episode is for you if you struggle to say no even when you want to, you feel guilty when you put yourself first, you worry about how others perceive you, sometimes more than what you actually want. You filter yourself, afraid of being seen as too much or not enough. You've been stuck in a cycle of overgiving, over explaining, or even over apologizing, right? And if any of these resonates, then notice this is not just who you are. This is called conditioning. And it is literally running your life. And you probably don't even realize it. So let's start at the root as usual. What is good girl conditioning? Well, first, where does this conditioning come from? From the moment you were born, you were taught what it means to be a good girl, right? To please people. And you've probably heard sayings like, be nice, don't make a fuss, don't be rude. Don't be too loud. That's not ladylike. You're behaving like a tomboy. Share your toys. Don't be selfish. Or put others first. Don't be selfish. Smile. Be polite. Don't be difficult. Do what's expected of you. Don't disappoint anyone. Always say yes when someone asks for help. Make sure everyone is happy with you. Right? You were taught that your value comes from how much you give, how much you serve, and how much you keep the peace, or even how much you are able to keep the peace. And what happens when you don't? You most likely were shamed, guilted, or even rejected, right? You might have heard things like, why are you being so dramatic? When you simply expressed your feelings. Or you might have heard, you need to be more agreeable, when you actually just spoke up for yourself. You're acting so selfish when you literally just set one and one only boundary. You're so full of yourself when you showed a slight ounce of confidence, God forbid. From childhood on, these messages teach you that it's safer to be quiet, accommodating, and easy to deal with. So, from such a young age on, you learn to make yourself smaller just to fit into what others expect of you. You learn that your worth is tied to how much you accommodate others. You believe that in order to be loved, accepted, or even seen as a good person, you have to suppress parts of yourself, your needs, your emotions, and overall, your truth. But here's the problem. When you constantly put others first, people forget you put yourself last. When you silence yourself to keep the peace, you create internal chaos, and you do not even realize it. When you ignore your own needs just to please others, you betray yourself over and over and over again. And let's be real, this isn't just a personal struggle. It is literally a pattern, a system, and a deep social conditioning. And here's where it gets even deeper. This conditioning doesn't just come from family or school. It's reinforced everywhere. And still in our society today, you are being praised for being the selfless woman, the agreeable woman, the woman who never complains, right? Meanwhile, if a woman dares to be assertive or bold or unapologetic, she's often labeled as too much, bossy, arrogant, difficult, right? Entitled, demanding. All of these different things that you even read online on the women's posts. So what do? You shrink. You silence yourself. You become the person the world tells you to be. And this is where the people-pleasing cycle begins. Now let's be real. People-pleasing is one of the biggest side effects of good girl conditioning. And the tricky part is, it feels like the right thing to do, right? You tell yourself, oh, I just want to be kind. I'm just being nice. I'm just being generous, right? I'm just being empathetic. Other people are not empathetic enough. You don't understand. You don't have empathy. I don't want to make things awkward, right? I just didn't want to create a weird situation. I didn't want to make a big deal out of this. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, right? I didn't want anyone to feel bad. You have been taught to prioritize harmony over honesty. But if you were really honest with yourself, you would see that it's not about kindness at all. It's about fear. It's about your fear of disappointing others. It's about your fear of being rejected. It's about your fear of being seen as difficult. It's about your fear of losing love or approval. And people-pleasing is not kindness. It is literally self-abandonment disguised as being nice. It is your mask. And you are a pretender just to keep up the good vibes, right? And if all that love and light crap that I hate so much that I always talk about, if that were a person, it would be you. That love and light crap is you, embodied, right? So, what does this actually look like in everyday life? Well, first, you say yes when you want to say no. So let's say your friend begs you to go out and drink alcohol and have a great time, right? Go party a bit. And even though you are exhausted, or you don't even drink alcohol anymore, or you know you got work in the morning, you still agree just to keep the peace, just because you do not want to say no and make them feel uncomfortable and weird. How insane is that? Or let's say your partner emotionally dumps on you with no warning, and even though you are already overwhelmed and had a shitty day yourself, you still let them project onto you without saying a word. You ignore your own limits just to avoid guilt in both cases. Then, second, we have you suppress your emotions to keep others comfortable. And in this case, you feel angry, but you smile and pretend everything is fine. So someone crosses a boundary, but you laugh it off instead of addressing it. Overall, you minimize your own experience just so others don't feel uncomfortable, right? And each time, oh my gosh, each time I think of that one, I have this visual of that one Friends episode in my head where Ross just keeps telling everyone, I'm fine, while completely falling apart in front of them, right? And the fact that you even think people cannot see through your bullshit is already delusional right in itself. Next, you seek validation before making decisions. So let's say you want to start something new, or change careers, or just move to a new city, find a new style, or simply set a boundary, right? But before doing anything, you need approval. So you go and ask multiple people what they think, your best friend, your partner, your parents, some random person you see during the day, because why not, right? And if they are against it, or even just critique the tiniest bit out of it, you are not going through with it, right? You are deciding against it because you don't trust yourself without external confirmation. And that goes with everything in your life. The last thing I'm going to mention, you feel guilty for taking up space. So you hesitate before speaking in a group or in front of your friends, your parents, or wherever really. You're worrying if what you say will sound stupid or if it will end in a fight. Or if you just overall shouldn't have said anything and it's not that big of a deal. You downplay your achievements, afraid of looking arrogant. You constantly adjust yourself to be more likable and seem low maintenance, right? Another context of this is also that one cool girl that's just one of the guys and she's so laid back and chill and I don't chase after a guy and I'm just going with the flow in my situationship. Like, it's alright if we are not committed right now. Don't be stressed, man. I'm all for that. You can be chill with me. Girl, all of these are just excuses for the fact that you have absolutely no self-respect, no standards, and absolutely no boundaries in place. And you're masking it with that cool girl act. But you're actually not. And here's the thing. Likability overall is a trap. No matter how much you shrink, someone will always have an opinion. You cannot escape that. So the work is not external, the work is internal. And the more you shrink, the more you lose yourself. And the problem with that is that every time you abandon yourself just to keep the peace, you reinforce the belief that your needs don't matter. So when you do this behavior over and over and over again, you start to lose touch with who you actually are. You don't know what you want anymore because you've spent years making choices based on what's expected of you. You don't trust your own decisions because you have spent too much time looking to others for validation. You don't feel free because you're constantly filtering yourself, making sure that you don't upset anyone. How insane. This isn't a personality trait. This is conditioning. And one of the biggest fears women carry is obviously being too much or not enough. Maybe you were told you were too opinionated as a kid, so you learned to keep quiet. Maybe you were told you were too dramatic or too emotional, too needy, or just too sensitive or sensible, so you learned to suppress your emotions. Maybe you were told you were too ambitious for a woman, so you learned to downplay your goals and not aim too high, or even worse, to not go for your passions and dreams at all. Maybe you were told that you were not smart enough, not pretty enough, not good enough, so you learned to prove yourself by overworking, overgiving, or overachieving. Or the complete opposite, you absolutely shame yourself, you shit talk yourself in your head all day, you think you're trash, and you have absolutely no sense of self-worth, self-respect, self-belief, self-trust, all of the things. Maybe you were told you were not feminine enough, so you changed yourself to fit into the masses. Although that last one, in my opinion, is debatable because I think women nowadays lose base with what it means to be an actual woman and to be really feminine or to just embody majorly the feminine side and to really just embody womanhood. But now, again, here's the truth. You will never be just right for everybody. Never. That just isn't realistic. But the goal was never to be perfect for them. It was simply to be whole for yourself, right? So the question that I want to ask you is, are you living for external approval or for your own truth? Because these fears are not there at random. They were implanted in you. And until you break this cycle, they will control your life. So now let's get into what happens when you stay stuck in this conditioning and why breaking free is the only option. Even though I mentioned multiple forms of people pleasing before, I want to get into the nitty gritty. Oh my gosh, into the nitty gritty of it now and give you some more concrete examples. Because you might think this only affects certain areas, but the truth is it bleeds into everything: your career, your education, your relationships, your friendships, and even the most important one, how you see yourself. So, first, we have it influences your career and your education. So, this might look like you hesitate to negotiate for a raise, or you to ask for a promotion, or even ask for a retake of a test at school because you don't want to seem demanding. Or it might look like you overwork yourself and take on extra responsibilities and say yes to everything to prove your own worth, instead of recognizing that you already deserve respect. Or you hold back from sharing your ideas in meetings or at school because you don't want to be seen as too opinionated or too aggressive, right? And the result here, you stay stuck, maybe even underpaid, for sure exhausted and overlooked. Not because you are not capable or because you don't have potential, but simply because you were taught to play it safe and not take up space, and you continued choosing this behavior day in and day out. The next one is in your relationships. So it influences all of your relationships, right? And this would look like you prioritize your partner's needs over your own, even when it means sacrificing your own happiness. And not just your partner's needs, maybe it can also be your friends' needs, your family's needs, right? Or you fear setting boundaries because you don't want to seem cold or difficult or just high maintenance, right? You're so worried about what they think of you, how they see you. Then you might tolerate behavior that just disrespects you, telling yourself, oh, I just need to be more understanding, or he didn't mean it like that. He will change. It was just a mistake. Stop lying to yourself. The result here, you end up in toxic relationships where you overgive, overcompensate, and feel unfulfilled and insecure because you were conditioned to believe that being loved means pleasing and not receiving. And I believe I do not need to mention that relationships like this are in fact not normal. It doesn't matter if it's your partner, your friends, your family, or the relationship with God, or the relationship with yourself. Relationships like this are not normal. This is not what it is supposed to be like. And this is a me versus you dynamic in each case that I mentioned. But instead, it is actually supposed to be an us both versus the problem kind of dynamic, right? And that's where a lot of dynamics fail because they overlook that aspect. The next one is that it influences your friendships. So you are always the helper, the therapist, the one everyone dumps their problems on, but rarely receives the same energy in return. Or it might look like you feel guilty for distancing yourself from toxic or one-sided friendships because you don't want to hurt anyone else's feelings. You don't want to hurt their feelings, right? Even though they clearly hurt yours, but you are still being overly empathetic and have no self-respect. Or it might look like you say yes to plans you don't want to go to because you are afraid of being seen as rude or selfish or even boring. Or you just want to avoid certain comments that you know they would make you to you otherwise, right? You don't speak your truth because you are scared it will end up in a fight, or worse, because you've already played out this scenario in your head and each time they reacted unreasonably, so you avoid a confrontation without giving them a chance in real life in the first place. Did that make sense? You are living so much in your head, creating these fake scenarios, already anticipating the outcome that you think it will be, so you don't even give them a chance in real life to maybe prove you wrong, right? And the result here, you drain yourself emotionally, surrounding yourself with people who take more than they give because you were taught that being a good friend means self sacrifice, not mutual support. Plus, in some instances, you are being the shitty and fake friend yourself because you are not who you are pretending to be, and you put on a mask just to appear a certain way and be liked, right? And also, through that people pleasing conditioning, you often put yourself in a victim mindset. So you play the victim even though maybe you were in the wrong in this situation, right? I've had that in many cases where I just played the victim and had that victim mentality and poor me mentality, when in reality, if you looked at the facts, no, I was actually being a bitch, not them. So you might do some self-reflection on that one as well. Now, the last one I'm going to mention here is obviously the relationship you have with yourself. So this might look like you beat yourself up for resting or relaxing or saying no because deep down you believe your worth is tied to your productivity, right? Or maybe you struggle to make choices without asking for 10 different opinions beforehand because you don't fully trust yourself. Or you over apologize for things that aren't your fault, and worse, you apologize while expressing your feelings. Or it might look like you instinctively make yourself smaller so you won't be fully seen or heard because you feel uncomfortable taking up space. All right, you want to make yourself small and hide away. You downplay your accomplishments because you don't want to come across as full of yourself or arrogant, right? Or too self confident, because who wants that? And the result here, you become disconnected from yourself. Your needs, your desires, your intuition, all buried under the weight of expectations. And you have no idea who you actually are because you are too busy trying to be someone else. You are too busy pretending. But what happens when you don't break free? Let me tell you, if you continue to live under this conditioning, here's what it leads to. You will for sure have a burnout because you're constantly putting others first and neglecting your own needs and taking on more than you can handle. It will lead to resentment because you give and give and give, yet you rarely feel truly appreciated or reciprocated, right? That is exhausting. Then it will lead to a lack of boundaries, obviously, because saying no to you feels like a personal attack. And guilt controls your everyday decisions. Every decision that you make, you feel guilty about them. Then it will lead to self-doubt because you don't trust yourself enough to make decisions without seeking approval of others and overall external validation. It will lead to inauthenticity. Hello, because you've spent so much time filtering yourself that you don't even know who you are without the people-pleasing mask, right? You don't even know who you are because you're just pretending all the time. And this is why so many women feel trapped in their own lives, unsatisfied. It's not that you are incapable. It's that you have been conditioned to believe that you cannot trust yourself, that you cannot be fully confident, that you cannot take up space, and that you cannot put yourself first. Only that now, you need to stop blaming whoever planted these beliefs in your subconscious, and you need to start recognizing that it is your responsibility to change your mindset, your behavior, and your actions, right? Because the good news is You don't have to live this way anymore. You can choose different. Breaking free from this conditioning doesn't mean that you suddenly become reckless, rude, or selfish. It simply means that you start living in alignment with your truth. It means saying no when you mean no, without guilt. It means setting boundaries without guilt or over-explaining. It means trusting yourself without needing external validation. It means prioritizing your own needs, desires, and well-being as a non-negotiable standard instead of an afterthought. It's about reclaiming your voice, your power, and your identity, right? And most importantly, it means realizing that you are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to be fully yourself, and that means choosing yourself every single day. Because the truth is, people pleasing doesn't protect you, it actually shrinks you. It doesn't make life easier like you think it does, it actually just makes it exhausting. And it doesn't earn you love, but instead it teaches you that love is only conditional. So here's what I want you to take away from this. The more you own who you are, the more aligned your life becomes. The more you prioritize your truth, the more magnetic you become. And the more you trust yourself, the more peace, freedom, and confidence you experience. You don't need to earn your place in this world by making yourself small. You already deserve to be here, fully, loudly, unapologetically, just by being yourself. So I want you to ask yourself, who would I be if I stopped asking for permission to exist? Because that woman, she's already within you. She's just waiting for you to set her free and finally fully embody her. It's always already within you, so stop searching in the external. And now that you see it for what it is, you get to break free from it. And if you've been wanting to put in 100% effort into yourself, then the Coming Home to Yourself community is where it's at. This is your space to dive deeper into everything we talk about here: healing, mindset, confidence, and embodiment, with exclusive content and unlimited resources, live sessions, and a supportive group of like-minded women who are all on their journey of coming home to themselves. If you are ready to go all in on yourself and your growth, this is your chance to join my world. And you can find all the details in the link I leave you down below and on my Instagram. I cannot wait to see you inside. And with that being said, I'm your host Vanessa. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Coming Home to Yourself podcast. Bye!